Dead weight. The words cut through the humid Afghan air like shrapnel, sharp and unforgiving. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez spat into the dust as he shouldered his pack, his weathered face twisted with disgust. That's all she is. Dead fucking. Wait. Communications specialist Elena Vasquez pretended not to hear as she adjusted the heavy radio equipment strapped to her back. The PRC-117G multiband radio weighed 32 pounds fully loaded, but it felt heavier today under the scorching sun of forward operating base Chapman. At 5 feet 4 inches and 125 pounds, she looked almost comical beneath the massive communications array that had earned her the nickname Radio among the Marines of Bravo Company. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I'm telling you, Captain, Rodriguez continued, his voice carrying across the staging area where 40 Marines prepared for their patrol into the Kunar Province. She's gonna get someone killed out there. Look at her, she can barely carry that gear, let alone keep up with a combat patrol. Captain James Mitchell adjusted his tactical vest, his expression unreadable behind wraparound sunglasses. At 34, he commanded Bravo Company with the kind of calm authority that came from 3 previous deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. His silence spoke volumes as Rodriguez pressed his case. Sir, with respect, I've been doing this for 12 years. I know dead weight when I see it. She might have passed her qual stateside, but this ain't Kansas anymore. This is Indian country. And when the shit hits the fan, that little girl is gonna fold. Elena continued her equipment check, methodically testing each frequency on her radio while the conversation about her continued as if she weren't standing 20 feet away. The other Marines avoided eye contact, some nodding in agreement with Rodriguez, others focusing intently on their own gear. The unspoken consensus was clear. She didn't belong here. The morning briefing had been brutal. Intelligence reports indicated increased Taliban activity in their patrol sector, with multiple IED discoveries along the main supply route. What should have been a routine presence patrol had been elevated to a high-risk mission, and tempers were running hot. Rodriguez had openly questioned Elena's assignment to the patrol, arguing that her lack of combat experience made her a liability. She's been here 3 weeks, Rodriguez had said during the briefing, his finger jabbing at the map spread across the folding table. 3 weeks, and she hasn't left the wire once. You want to send a cherry-cum specialist on her first patrol into bandit country? That's how Marines die, sir. Elena had remained silent during the exchange, as she had learned to do during her brief time at FOB Chapman. Speaking up only made things worse, gave them more ammunition to use against her. Better to let her performance speak for itself, though. So far, she hadn't been given many chances to prove her worth. The assignment to Afghanistan had been a shock to everyone, including Elena herself. Communications specialists with her specific skill set were supposed to be stationed at major command centers, coordinating between multiple units and providing technical support for complex operations. Instead, she found herself attached to a forward deployed Marine company in one of the most dangerous regions of Afghanistan. The official explanation was that Bravo Company needed enhanced communications capabilities for an upcoming operation. The unofficial truth, whispered in the corridors of Camp Leon before her deployment, was that someone wanted her out of the way. Her previous assignment at Marine Corps Communications Command had ended abruptly after she discovered discrepancies in communication protocols that had embarrassed several senior officers. Look, Rodriguez continued, his voice taking on a more reasonable tone as he tried a different approach with Captain Mitchell. I'm not saying she's not smart. Hell, she probably knows more about radios than half the cum guys I've worked with. But knowing about something and performing under fire are 2 different things. When we're taking contact and need immediate support, I need someone I can count on, not someone who might freeze up. Captain Mitchell finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of command decision. She's going, Rodriguez. We need her capabilities on this patrol, and that's final. Rodriguez's jaw tightened, but he knew better than to argue further with a direct order. Yes, sir. But I want it on record that I advised against this. Noted, Mitchell replied curtly before turning away to address the assembled Marines. Elena finished her radio check and moved to join the patrol formation, her equipment jangling softly with each step. The sound drew disapproving looks from several Marines who prided themselves on moving silently. Everything about her seemed wrong to them, her size, her gender, her newness to combat operations, even the way she carried herself with what they interpreted as nervous tension, but was actually careful attention to detail. Private First Class Danny Kim, barely 18 and on his first deployment, fell into step beside her. Don't let Rodriguez get to you, he whispered, his voice barely audible above the general commotion of pre-patrol preparations. He's just scared of anything different. Elena appreciated the gesture, even as she wondered what it said about her situation that her only ally was the youngest Marine in the company. Kim had been marginalized himself during his first weeks at the FOB, though his gender and aggressive enthusiasm for combat had eventually won him grudging acceptance from the senior Marines. I'm not worried about Rodriguez, Elena replied, though they both knew it was a lie. Rodriguez's opinion carried weight with the other Marines, and his vocal opposition to her presence had influenced the entire company's attitude toward her. The truth was more complicated than Rodriguez's simple assessment. Elena had never been in combat, but her qualifications were far beyond what a typical forward-deployed communications specialist would possess. She held advanced certifications in satellite communications, electronic warfare, and signals intelligence. Her training included courses that most Marines never even knew existed, programs run by agencies whose names appeared on no public organizational charts. Before the Marine Corps, Elena had spent 2 years at MIT studying electrical engineering and computer science. Her professors had described her as brilliant but unfocused, unable to find a practical application for her theoretical knowledge. The military had provided that focus, channeling her technical abilities into systems that could mean the difference between life and death for troops in the field. Her recruitment into the fighter communications field had been unusual. Most Marines learned radio procedures and basic equipment operation. Elena had been fast-tracked through advanced technical schools, learning to operate equipment that could intercept enemy communications, jam hostile signals, and coordinate complex multi-unit operations across vast distances. The problem was that none of her specialized training translated into the kind of credibility that mattered to infantry Marines. They respected combat experience, physical toughness, and proven performance under fire. Technical expertise meant nothing if you couldn't carry your own weight on patrol or react correctly when the enemy opened fire. Listen up. Captain Mitchell's voice cut through the pre-patrol chatter. We've got a 10-clit patrol through Sectors 7 and 8. Intelligence reports possible hostile activity along Route Copper, so we're taking the high road through the mountains. Stay alert, watch your sectors, and remember, this is Indian country. Every pile of rocks could be hiding an IED. Every ridge could have a sniper. He paused, scanning the faces of his Marines. We've got enhanced communication support for this patrol, he said, nodding toward Elena. Specialist Vasquez will be monitoring multiple frequencies and providing real-time intelligence updates. Her equipment gives us capabilities we haven't had before, so use them. The announcement drew mixed reactions. Some Marines looked skeptical, others simply nodded and continued their preparations. Rodriguez made no effort to hide his disapproval. Shaking his head and muttering under his breath, Elena felt the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders along with her radio pack. This was her chance to prove herself, to demonstrate that her presence on the patrol was an asset rather than a liability. The problem was that everything she'd been trained to do required the cooperation of the Marines around her, and most of them had already decided she was a burden. "Mount up," Rodriguez called, his voice carrying the authority of a senior non-commissioned officer who had led dozens of patrols in hostile territory. "We step off in 5 minutes. Check your buddy, check your gear, and remember, we bring everyone home." Elena performed her final equipment check, ensuring that her radio was properly configured for the multiple frequencies she would need to monitor. The PRC-117G was a sophisticated piece of equipment, capable of secure satellite communication, frequency hopping, and encryption that would prevent enemy forces from intercepting or jamming their transmissions. She had also been issued a secondary piece of equipment that none of the other Marines knew about, a small, unmarked device that looked like a modified GPS unit, but was actually an advanced signals intelligence collector. The device could intercept and analyze enemy communications, providing real-time intelligence about hostile movements and intentions. The existence of the device was classified, known only to Elena and Captain Mitchell. Even Rodriguez, with his senior rank and extensive combat experience, had not been briefed on its capabilities. The secrecy surrounding the equipment was just another factor that isolated Elena from the Marines she was supposed to support. As the patrol formed up and prepared to leave the relative safety of Phoebe Chapman, Elena took her position in the middle of the formation. Standard operating procedure placed communications personnel in the center of the patrol, protected by riflemen and machine gunners who could provide security while she operated her equipment. The positioning was tactically sound, but psychologically problematic. To the Marines around her, it looked like she was being protected because she couldn't protect herself. The fact that her equipment made her a high-value target, and therefore worthy of protection, was lost on infantrymen who judged worth by rifle skills and physical toughness. "Remember," Rodriguez said as he passed Elena's position, his voice low but clearly intended for her to hear, "when this goes sideways, and it will go sideways, just try not to get anyone killed while you're figuring out which button to push." Elena looked up at him, meeting his gaze directly for the first time since arriving at the FOB. "I know which buttons to push, Staff Sergeant. The question is whether you'll listen when I tell you what they're saying." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed at her unexpected response. He had expected submission or nervous defensiveness, not quiet confidence. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," Elena said, adjusting her radio headset, "that my equipment can hear things yours can't. When I tell you something, it might be worth listening." Rodriguez studied her for a moment, clearly trying to decide if her response represented courage or stupidity. "We'll see," he said finally, then moved forward to take his position at the head of the patrol. "Captain." Mitchell appeared beside Elena as the patrol prepared to move out. "You ready for this, Vasquez?" "Yes, sir," she replied, though her stomach was churning with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. "All systems are green." "Good. Remember, these Marines have been doing this for months. They know the terrain, they know the enemy, and they know each other. Your job is to give them information they can use, not to second-guess their tactical decisions." Elena nodded, understanding the subtext. She was there to provide technical support, not to act like she understood infantry tactics better than Marines who had been fighting in Afghanistan for months. The distinction was important, and maintaining it might be the key to earning their grudging acceptance. "Yes, sir. I'm here to support the mission." Mitchell nodded and moved forward to join Rodriguez at the front of the patrol. Elena watched him go, noting the easy camaraderie between the captain and his senior NCO. She wondered if she would ever be accepted as part of the team, or if she would always be an outsider looking in. The patrol stepped off at 0800 hours, moving out through the main gate of Phoebe Chapman and into the rugged terrain of the Kunar Province. Elena fell into the rhythm of the march, her equipment bouncing with each step as they climbed into the Mountains that surrounded their forward operating base. The landscape was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. Rocky ridges stretched toward snow-capped peaks, while deep valleys carved by ancient rivers created natural corridors that had been used by travelers and warriors for thousands of years. The same geography that made the region strategically important also made it perfect terrain for ambushes and guerrilla warfare. Elena monitored her radio frequencies as they walked, listening to the routine chatter of other units operating in the area. Her equipment automatically scanned dozens of frequencies, searching for any transmissions that might indicate enemy activity. The Advanced Signals Intelligence device remained silent, its sophisticated sensors finding no hostile communications in their immediate area. After 2 hours of steady climbing, the patrol reached a ridgeline that offered a commanding view of the valley below. Captain Mitchell called a halt, and the Marines spread out in a defensive perimeter while he and Rodriguez studied their route map. Elena used the break to perform a comprehensive communications check, ensuring that her equipment was functioning properly and that she could reach all necessary command and support elements. Her radio crackled with routine traffic, supply, convoys reporting their positions, aircraft checking in with ground controllers, and various units requesting updates on intelligence reports. It was during this routine monitoring that Elena first noticed something unusual. Her signals intelligence device had detected a faint transmission on a frequency commonly used by Taliban forces. The signal was brief and heavily encrypted, but the device's sophisticated analysis capabilities were able to determine that it originated from somewhere in the valley below. Elena frowned, adjusting her equipment to get a better reading. The signal repeated twice more, each time from a slightly different location. Someone was using sophisticated communications equipment to coordinate movement in the valley, and they were trying very hard not to be detected. She keyed her radio and called Captain Mitchell. "Actual, this is radio. I'm picking up some interesting activity on the intelligence frequencies. Request permission to brief you on my findings." Mitchell's voice came back immediately. "Stand by, radio." Elena watched as the captain consulted with Rodriguez, pointing in her direction. Even from a distance, she could see Rodriguez shaking his head and gesturing dismissively. The conversation lasted several minutes before Mitchell finally walked over to her position. "What have you got, Vasquez?" he asked, his tone neutral but attentive. Elena pointed to her signals intelligence device, which was displaying a complex pattern of intercepted transmissions. "I'm detecting coordinated communications in the valley below, sir. Multiple transmitters, probably handheld radios, using encryption and frequency hopping to avoid detection. The pattern suggests an organized group conducting movement operations." Mitchell studied the display, though Elena doubted he understood the technical details. "How confident are you in this assessment?" "Very confident, sir. This equipment is specifically designed to detect this type of activity, and the pattern is consistent with coordinated military movement." Rodriguez had approached during their conversation, and Elena could see the skepticism written across his face. "Sir," he said, "we've been patrolling this area for months. We know every farmer, every goat herder, every legitimate reason for someone to be in that valley. If there was significant Taliban activity down there, we'd know about it." Elena looked between the two men, realizing that this was a critical moment. Her technical findings were being weighed against Rodriguez's operational experience, and she was the newcomer trying to prove her worth. "With respect, Staff Sergeant," she said carefully, "this equipment can detect communications that wouldn't be picked up by standard radio monitoring. These signals are specifically designed to avoid detection by conventional means." Rodriguez's expression hardened. "Are you telling me that in 3 weeks here, you've detected something that we've missed in 6 months of operations?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Elena realized that anything she said would be interpreted as either arrogance or weakness. If she backed down, she would be dismissed as ineffective. If she stood her ground, she would be seen as presumptuous. I'm telling you what my equipment is detecting, Staff Sergeant. Whether that represents a threat is for command to determine. Mitchell looked at his watch, then at the route they still needed to cover. Can you continue monitoring while we move? Yes, sir. The equipment is designed for mobile operations. All right. Keep me informed of any changes in the activity you're detecting. Rodriguez, let's get the patrol moving. We need to reach Checkpoint Alpha before 1200 hours. As the Marines prepared to continue their patrol, Elena noticed several of them glancing in her direction with expressions that ranged from curious to skeptical. Word of her intelligence report had spread through the small unit, and everyone was now aware that the new communications specialist claimed to have detected enemy activity that had escaped the notice of experienced combat veterans. The pressure was building, and Elena knew that her credibility, and possibly her life, depended on the accuracy of her assessment. The signals intelligence device continued to detect coordinated communications in the valley below, but she was beginning to wonder if she was seeing patterns that didn't exist, interpreting routine transmissions as evidence of hostile activity. As they resumed their march deeper into Taliban territory, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she was being tested in ways she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't enough to be technically competent. She had to be right, and she had to be right under circumstances where being wrong could have fatal consequences for everyone around her. The patrol continued into the mountains, carrying with it the unresolved tension between experience and technology, between traditional military wisdom and modern intelligence capabilities. Elena walked in the center of the formation, surrounded by Marines who had not yet decided whether she was an asset or a liability, monitoring signals that might represent a significant threat or might be nothing more than electronic noise. The real test was still ahead, waiting somewhere in the harsh Afghan landscape where split-second decisions and accurate information could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Elena's equipment hummed quietly as it continued its invisible work, searching the electromagnetic spectrum for the signals that might reveal enemy intentions and save Marine lives. But first, she would have to convince the Marines around her that her warnings were worth heeding, a challenge that was proving more difficult than any technical problem she had ever encountered. 3 hours into the patrol, Elena's signals intelligence device began displaying patterns that made her blood run cold. The scattered communications she detected earlier had consolidated into a coordinated network of at least 15 transmitters, all moving toward predetermined positions that formed a textbook ambush formation around the route Bravo Company was taking. "Captain," Elena called urgently over the radio, her voice cutting through the routine patrol chatter. "I need you to see this immediately." Captain Mitchell's response was swift but cautious. "What's your status, radio?" "Sir, I'm detecting a significant change in enemy communications. Multiple units are moving into coordinated positions. I believe we're walking into an ambush." The patrol came to an abrupt halt as Mitchell's voice crackled over the radio. "All stations, this is actual. Take cover and establish security. Rodriguez, get up here." Elena watched as Staff Sergeant Rodriguez moved quickly toward her position, his expression a mixture of irritation and concern. Behind him, 40 Marines dispersed into defensive positions among the rocky terrain, their weapons trained outward. As they scanned for threats, "This better be good, Vasquez," Rodriguez muttered as he reached her position. "You just stopped a combat patrol based on some radio chatter." Elena's hands moved quickly across her equipment, calling up the data that had triggered her alarm. The signals intelligence device displayed a tactical overview that would have been immediately recognizable to any military intelligence analyst, but looked like meaningless symbols to the infantry marine studying it. "Look at this pattern," Elena said, pointing to the display. 15 separate transmitters, all using coordinated frequency changes and encrypted communications. They've been moving for the past hour, and they're all converging on positions that overlook our route. Captain Mitchell arrived and studied the display intently. "Explain this to me like I'm 5 years old." Elena took a breath, knowing that her next words would either validate her warning or destroy her credibility permanently. "Sir, imagine you're planning an ambush. You want your fighters positioned where they can cover all possible escape routes, with overlapping fields of fire and coordinated timing. That's exactly what this communications pattern shows." She traced the positions on her device with her finger. "These 3 transmitters are moving to high ground on our left flank. These 4 are positioning themselves to cut off our retreat. And these 8 are spreading out along the ridge we're heading toward." Rodriguez studied the display skeptically. "How do you know they're hostiles?" "Could be farmers, herders, anyone with a radio. Farmers don't use military encryption protocols." Elena replied firmly. "And they don't coordinate movement using tactical communications procedures. This is definitely military traffic, and it's definitely hostile." Mitchell looked at his watch, then at the route ahead. They were scheduled to reach their checkpoint in 2 hours, and any significant deviation would affect other operations in the area. The decision he made in the next few minutes would impact not just his patrol, but potentially dozens of other missions. "What's your confidence level in this assessment?" he asked Elena directly. 95%, sir. The pattern is unmistakable, and my equipment is specifically designed to detect this type of coordinated enemy activity." Rodriguez shook his head. "Sir, we've been operating in this area for months. We know the Taliban's capabilities, and they don't have the kind of sophisticated communications this specialist is talking about." Elena felt her frustration building. "Staff Sergeant, with respect, the Taliban have been upgrading their capabilities throughout this deployment. They're using equipment that's specifically designed to avoid detection by standard military radios. And you just happen to be the only one who can detect it?" Rodriguez's voice carried a tone of barely controlled skepticism. "I'm the only one here with this specific equipment," Elena replied, her voice steady despite the tension. "That's why I was assigned to this patrol." Captain Mitchell raised his hand, cutting off the argument. "Bottom line, Vasquez. If you're right, what happens if we continue on our current route?" Elena looked at the tactical display one more time, studying the pattern of enemy movements. "If we continue on our current route, we'll be walking into a coordinated ambush by at least 15 fighters positioned on the high ground. They'll have overlapping fields of fire and pre-planned escape routes. It would be a massacre, sir." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Mitchell studied the faces of his Marines, men who had trusted him to bring them home safely from dozens of previous patrols. The weight of command had never felt heavier. "And if you're wrong?" Rodriguez asked. Elena met his gaze directly. "If I'm wrong, we've lost 2 hours and some fuel. If I'm right and we ignore this warning, we lose Marines." Mitchell made his decision. "All stations, this is actual. We're taking an alternate route based on intelligence reports." "Rodriguez, break out the alternate route cards." Rodriguez's jaw tightened, but he followed orders without argument. "Yes, sir. Which alternate?" "Route Delta," Mitchell replied. "Takes us around the high ground and approaches the checkpoint from the east." As the Marines began repositioning for the route change, Elena continued monitoring her equipment. The enemy communications had shifted again, with several transmitters moving rapidly toward new positions. They were adapting to the patrol's changed route, confirming her assessment that this was a coordinated military operation. "Captain," she called urgently, "they're repositioning. The communications pattern is shifting to cover Route Delta." Mitchell's voice carried new tension. "How fast are they moving?" Elena studied the data, calculating movement rates based on the changing signal strengths and positions. "Fast enough to beat us to the alternate route if we continue at normal patrol speed. They've got vehicles, sir." Rodriguez overheard the exchange and approached Elena's position with a new expression on his face. The skepticism was still there, but it was now mixed with something that might have been respect. "If they've got vehicles," he said slowly, "then this isn't a random patrol ambush. This is a planned operation against our specific mission." Elena nodded grimly. "That's my assessment, Staff Sergeant. Someone knew our route, our timing, and our destination. This was planned specifically for us. The implications were staggering." If Elena was correct, it meant that operational security had been compromised at a high level. Someone with access to detailed mission planning had provided information to Taliban forces, enabling them to coordinate a sophisticated ambush against a 40-man Marine patrol. Mitchell got on the radio with higher command, reporting the situation, and requesting immediate support. "Overwatch, this is Bravo Actual. We have indications of coordinated enemy activity along our route. Request immediate ISR support and quick reaction force standby." The response was swift but concerning. "Bravo Actual, this is Overwatch. No ISR assets currently available in your area. QRF is committed to another operation. You are cleared to use your discretion regarding route and timing." Elena listened to the exchange with growing alarm. They were alone out here, 40 Marines against an unknown number of enemy fighters, who had the advantage of prepared positions and detailed intelligence about the patrol's mission. "Captain," she said quietly, "I'm detecting something else." Mitchell looked at her with an expression that was part hope and part dread. What now? Elena's signals intelligence device was displaying a new pattern, more complex than anything she had seen before. "There's another communications network, separate from the ambush group. Higher level encryption, different equipment. This looks like command and control traffic." She worked quickly to analyze the new signals, her training in advanced communications intelligence finally paying dividends. "Sir, I think there's a high-value target coordinating this operation. Someone important enough to rate sophisticated. Communication security." Rodriguez had been listening to the exchange, and Elena saw something change in his expression. The antagonism was still there, but it was now mixed with professional interest. "What kind of high-value target?" he asked. "Based on the communications profile. Probably a regional Taliban commander. Someone with the authority to coordinate a complex operation involving multiple cells." Mitchell studied the tactical situation, weighing options that all seemed to lead to dangerous outcomes. They could abort the patrol and return to base, but that would mean abandoning their mission and potentially allowing a high-value target to escape. They could continue with their original route, but Elena's intelligence suggested that would lead to catastrophic casualties. "Is there any way to turn this around?" Mitchell asked. "Use their preparations against them?" Elena studied her equipment, considering possibilities that went far beyond her normal communications role. "Maybe, sir. If I can get precise locations for their command element, we might be able to call in fires or coordinate a counter-ambush." Rodriguez looked skeptical again. "You're talking about conducting targeting operations based on radio intercepts. That's way beyond what a communications specialist should be doing." Elena's patience finally snapped. "Staff Sergeant, I've been trying to tell you that I'm not just a communications specialist. My training includes signals intelligence, electronic warfare, and targeting support. I know what I'm doing." The revelation hung between them like a bridge being built in real time. Rodriguez studied Elena with new eyes, seeing not just the small woman who struggled with heavy equipment, but a specialist with capabilities he hadn't. "Understood. What exactly is your background?" Mitchell asked. Elena hesitated, knowing that revealing too much about her specialized training could compromise operational security. "Sir, I have advanced training in signals intelligence and electronic warfare. I'm qualified to conduct targeting operations based on communications intercepts." Rodriguez's expression shifted again. "You're telling me you're basically a spook?" "I'm telling you I have the training and equipment to help us turn this situation around," Elena replied. "But I need your trust and your tactical expertise to make it work." Mitchell made another command decision. "What do you need?" Elena's hands moved quickly across her equipment, configuring systems that most Marines had never seen before. "I need 15 minutes to get precise locations on their command element and the ambush positions. Then I need someone who understands infantry tactics to help me figure out how to use that information." Rodriguez looked at Mitchell, who nodded. "You've got it, Rodriguez. Work with her on the tactical side." What followed was the most intense quarter hour of Elena's military career. Her signals intelligence equipment worked overtime, triangulating enemy positions based on communications intercepts, while sophisticated analysis programs identified command relationships and predicted movement patterns. Rodriguez watched over her shoulder, his years of combat experience allowing him to translate her technical intelligence into tactical understanding. "If their command element is here," he said, pointing to Elena's display, "and their ambush positions are here, then we can approach from this direction and catch them completely off guard." Elena nodded, her respect for Rodriguez's tactical acumen growing by the minute. "The communications pattern suggests they're not expecting any threat from that direction. All their security is focused on the routes they expect us to take." Together, they developed a plan that would have been impossible without Elena's technical capabilities and Rodriguez's infantry expertise. Instead of walking into the Taliban ambush, Bravo Company would conduct a counter-ambush of their own, using Elena's intelligence to position themselves where they could engage the enemy command element and disrupt the entire operation. "This is either brilliant or completely insane," Mitchell said when they briefed him on their plan. "Probably both, sir," Rodriguez replied. "But if Vasquez is right about their positions, we can hit them where they're not expecting it and take out their command structure before they can coordinate a response." Elena made the radio call that would change everything. Using encrypted communications that the Taliban couldn't intercept, she coordinated with artillery units and close air support assets, providing precise targeting data that would allow supporting fires to engage enemy positions simultaneously with Bravo Company's ground assault. "Firebase Charlie, this is Bravo Radio," Elena transmitted, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was coordinating. "I have multiple priority targets for immediate engagement. Stand by for targeting data." The Artillery Fire Direction Center responded immediately. "Bravo Radio, this is Charlie. Send your targets." Elena transmitted precise coordinates for 15 different enemy positions, along with detailed intelligence about each location's significance to the overall Taliban operation. Her signals intelligence equipment continued to monitor enemy communications, providing real-time updates on their movements and intentions. "Charlie, be advised, I have continuous intelligence on target movement and can provide real-time adjustments. Request immediate engagement of command element at grid 41 SPR, 12,345 67,890. The response was swift and devastating. Artillery rounds began impacting enemy positions with surgical precision, guided by Elena's real-time intelligence updates. The Taliban command structure, caught completely off guard by the unexpected attack, began to collapse as their coordinated ambush plan fell apart. Elena continued to coordinate the complex operation, her radio crackling with updates from multiple supporting units. "Bravo Actual, this is radio. Enemy communications are showing complete confusion. Their command element is down, and individual cells are requesting instructions." Rodriguez, monitoring the tactical situation from his position, watched in amazement as Elena's intelligence proved devastatingly accurate. Every position she had identified was exactly where she said it would be, and the enemy's response confirmed that their operational plan had been completely disrupted. "Unfucking believable," he muttered, then keyed his radio. "All Bravo stations. This is Bravo 7. Radio has just saved all our asses. When this is over, Anyone who calls her dead weight answers to me. The battle was over almost before it began. Faced with precise artillery fire directed by real-time intelligence, the Taliban fighters abandoned their positions and fled. What had been planned as a sophisticated ambush against 40 Marines became a devastating defeat for the enemy force. Elena continued monitoring communications as the enemy withdrew, tracking their movement and ensuring that no reorganization attempts could succeed. Her equipment detected desperate calls for reinforcements and medical support, confirming the effectiveness of the counter-ambush operation. "Bravo Actual, this is radio," Elena transmitted. "Enemy communications indicate 15 to 20 casualties and complete mission failure on their part. No indication of reorganization or counterattack capability." Captain Mitchell's voice carried new respect when he responded. "Outstanding work, radio. That was some of the finest intelligence support I've ever seen." The patrol completed its mission without further incident, reaching their checkpoint ahead of schedule and with zero friendly casualties. The Taliban force that had planned to ambush them had been scattered to the winds, their command structure destroyed and their confidence shattered. As they prepared for the return journey to Fob Chapman, Rodriguez approached Elena's position. The antagonism that had characterized their relationship was gone, replaced by the kind of professional respect that existed between proven warriors. "Vasquez," he said, extending his hand, "I owe you an apology. And more than that, I owe you my life and the lives of every Marine on this patrol." Elena shook his hand, noting the calluses that spoke of years handling weapons and equipment in harsh conditions. "Just doing my job, Staff Sergeant." Rodriguez shook his head. "No, you did a hell of a lot more than your job. You saved 40 Marines with one radio call, and you did it with equipment and skills that most of us didn't even know existed." Word of Elena's performance spread quickly through the patrol. Marines who had dismissed her as deadweight now sought her out, asking questions about her equipment and expressing amazement at what she had accomplished. The dynamic of the unit had changed completely in the space of a few hours. Private Kim approached Elena as they prepared to move out. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. You basically conducted your own intelligence operation and coordinated a complex fire mission while monitoring enemy communications in real time." Elena smiled, appreciating the young Marine's enthusiasm. "It's what the equipment is designed for, Kim. I just knew how to use it properly." Captain Mitchell gathered the patrol for a final briefing before they began their return journey. "Today, every one of you saw something important," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had learned a valuable lesson. "You saw why we don't judge capability by appearance, why we trust in training and equipment over assumptions, and why every Marine brings something valuable to the fight." He looked directly at Elena. "Specialist Vasquez didn't just save lives today. She demonstrated that the modern battlefield requires skills and capabilities that go beyond traditional infantry tactics." Her technical expertise, combined with Staff Sergeant Rodriguez's tactical knowledge, turned a potential disaster into a significant victory. Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "From now on, when radio speaks, we listen. No questions, no arguments. She's proven she knows what she's talking about." The return journey to Fob Chapman was uneventful, but the conversation among the Marines was entirely different from the morning's skeptical discussions. Elena found herself at the center of technical conversations, explaining how her equipment worked and how signals intelligence could support combat operations. She had proven that her worth couldn't be measured by physical size or gender, but by the specialized skills and knowledge she brought to the team. The radio call that had saved 40 Marines had also transformed her from an outsider into an integral part of Bravo Company. As they walked through the gates of Fob Chapman that evening, Elena reflected on the day's events. She had faced the ultimate test of her capabilities and proven that technical expertise, properly applied, could be just as valuable as traditional Combat skills. Rodriguez fell into step beside her as they approached the communications center. You know, Vasquez, I've been doing this for 12 years, and I learned something important today. What's that, Staff Sergeant? Rodriguez smiled, the first genuine expression of warmth she had seen from him. I learned that dead weight is a matter of perspective. What looks like a burden from one angle might be exactly what saves your life from another. Elena smiled back, finally feeling like she belonged. Thanks, Staff Sergeant. That means a lot. No, Rodriguez replied. Thank you for proving that I was wrong and for saving my Marines. In this business, there's no higher compliment than that. The story of Elena Vasquez, the communications specialist who was called dead weight until she saved 40 Marines with one radio call, became legend at Phobe Chapman. It spread throughout the military communications community, inspiring other specialists to push the boundaries of their capabilities and proving that in modern warfare, the most important battles are often fought with technology and intelligence, rather than rifles and grenades. Elena's career flourished after that day in the Afghan mountains. She became a sought-after specialist for complex operations. Her combination of technical expertise and proven performance under fire, making her invaluable to commanders who understood the changing nature of warfare. But she never forgot the lesson learned that day, that proving your worth isn't about meeting other people's expectations, but about demonstrating capabilities they didn't know they needed. Sometimes the person everyone dismisses as dead weight turns out to be exactly the one who saves everyone's life. The quiet heroes who carry the heaviest equipment and know which buttons to push when everything goes wrong. They might not look like traditional warriors, but in an age of electronic warfare and sophisticated communications, they're often the ones who make the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Elena Vasquez had proven that strength isn't just about physical capability, but about knowledge, preparation, and the courage to act when lives depend on making the right call at the right moment. Her story became a reminder that in modern warfare, the most dangerous weapon is often the one carried by the person everyone underestimates. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.